Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, we open a door to the past and step into the heart of ancient Athens. The city hums with voices of poets, philosophers, and artisans, shaping a golden age of wisdom and beauty. On the hill above, the Acropolis rises like a crown, its marble glowing under the Mediterranean sun. At its center stands a temple unlike any other, a gift to the goddess who guards this proud city. She is Athena, goddess of wisdom, courage, and craft, the spirit of Athens itself given divine form. The people gather in her honor, weaving festivals, songs, and prayers into the fabric of daily life. Stone by stone, the Parthenon was raised, not only as shelter for a statue, but as a symbol eternal. Imagine the sound of chisels striking marble, echoes of hammers building more than just a monument. Here, history is not silent. It whispers through columns and friezes, carved with stories of gods and men. This is not only architecture, but philosophy in stone, a dialogue of beauty, balance, and human hope. Tonight, we will journey together through the Parthenon of Athena to uncover its secrets and soul. Close your eyes and let us return to the bustling heart of Athens, a city alive with sound and spirit. The streets are narrow, yet filled with voices, with laughter, and with footsteps echoing on sunlit stone. Merchants call from their stalls, offering olives, wine, and honey to citizens strolling with quiet pride. Children run between columns and courtyards, their laughter blending with the murmur of the marketplace. Above it all, the air carries the rhythm of life, a harmony woven from music, work, and endless talk. Athens in this age is no ordinary city, but a place of ideas, a stage where thought itself is celebrated. Here, poets recite verses under the shade of olive trees, while listeners lean in, savoring each word. Philosophers gather in small groups, debating truth, justice, and the mysteries of the soul's journey. Everywhere you turn, words flow like rivers, carving new paths through the minds of those who listen. This is a city where wisdom is not hidden in libraries, but spoken in open air, offered freely to all. Walk further, and you will hear the sounds of artisans at work, chiseling, weaving, painting, creating. Each craft is more than labor. It is devotion, a way of honoring the gods and the city they protect. Marble is cut into graceful shapes. Bronze is melted and cast into figures that will outlast generations. Athenians see beauty not as luxury, but as necessity, a reflection of balance and harmony in life. The city itself becomes a canvas, alive with color, texture, and the fragrance of flowers and incense.
Reveals the path.
But Athens is not only sound and color, it is also spirit, carried in rituals that honor the divine. Each year, citizens gather for the Parthenon festival, a celebration of Athena, their guardian. Songs rise in her name, dances are offered, and processions wind through the streets to the Acropolis. In these moments, devotion is not separate from life, but woven into the fabric of civic pride. Athens belongs to its people, yet it is always guided by the wisdom of their goddess. The Golden Age shines brightest under Pericles, whose vision reshaped Athens into a beacon of culture. He believes the city must reflect not only strength, but also the highest ideals of thought and beauty. Under his leadership, theaters are built, art flourishes, and the voice of democracy grows stronger. Athenians feel a sense of destiny, as though their city is chosen to lead by wisdom and by example. At the heart of this destiny stands the idea of building something eternal upon the sacred hill. From almost anywhere in the city, one can look up and see the Acropolis, rising like a sacred crown. The hill is more than rock. It is a sanctuary, a place where the mortal world touches the divine. Temples already rest upon its summit. But the dream of the Parthenon has not yet taken shape. The people imagine a home for their goddess, one that would reflect the brilliance of their age. It would not simply be a temple, but a statement, carved in stone of who they are as a people. As the sun sets, the sky over Athens glows with hues of orange, gold, and soft, fading violet. Citizens pause in their routines to admire the hilltop, where soon a great vision will rise in marble. The air feels charged with anticipation, as though the city itself holds its breath for what is to come. This is Athens at the dawn of its most radiant creation, the Parthenon, the Temple of Athena. And it is here, in the heart of the city and the spirit of its people, that our journey truly begins. In the heart of every story of Athens stands a goddess, a figure of wisdom, strength, and quiet power. Her name is Athena, and she is more than myth. She is the breath of the city that bears her name. Born from the mind of Zeus, she came into the world not as a child, but as a radiant figure of wisdom. Legends say she emerged fully grown, armored and shining, a symbol of intelligence and divine clarity. Athena is not a goddess of chaos, but of balance, guiding mortals with calm judgment and thoughtful care. She is patroness of strategy, not war's fury, but the wisdom to plan, to foresee, and to act with purpose. When others rush with emotion, Athena counsels patience, urging mortals to see the wider horizon. Her gifts are not only for warriors, but for artisans, weavers, and all who shape beauty with their hands. It is said she taught women the craft of weaving, threads dancing like stories across the loom's frame. She inspired builders, metalworkers, and poets, each creation an offering in the quiet of her gaze. Athenians see in her a mirror of their ideals. Courage without arrogance, strength guided by reason. To them, she is not distant, but present, walking in their streets, watching from their olive groves. The olive tree itself, her sacred gift, roots deeply in their soil, offering fruit, oil, and life. Its branches shade courtyards, its oil lights lamps, and its symbol crowns victors in peaceful games. For the people, the tree is more than wood and fruit. It is Athena's promise of wisdom and prosperity. Each festival held in her honor is not only ritual, but a reminder of who they are under her gaze. The Panathenaic procession winds to the Acropolis, carrying robes woven with care for her statue. Every thread in the cloth tells of devotion, stories passed from hands to hands across generations. In the minds of Athenians, Athena is both guardian and guide, shaping destiny without raising a sword. Her shield protects, her spear points forward, yet her eyes speak of calm, knowledge, and foresight. She embodies the balance Athens seeks, power tempered by thought, ambition softened by wisdom. Philosophers praise her as the silent partner in their debates, the goddess of reasoned inquiry. Artisans thank her for skill, while mothers whisper prayers for courage to guide their children's steps. Her presence is carved into statues, painted on vases, and spoken in hymns sung by the city's youth. Unlike gods of storm or sea, Athena's power is subtle, shaping minds more than bending earth. She belongs not to one class or one calling, but to the entire city, a shared spirit of unity. To know Athens is to know Athena, for she is the soul breathing within its walls and temples. Her wisdom whispers in the council chambers, her courage marches with soldiers on distant fields. Even in silence, her presence lingers in every olive branch, every marble stone, every word of truth. And so, when Athenians dream of a temple, it is only natural it must rise for her, their protector. not a mere house for offerings, but a monument to her spirit, carved into the very skyline of Athens. For Athena is not only their goddess, but their identity, their destiny, and their eternal guide. The story of the Parthenon cannot be told without speaking of Pericles, the great leader of Athens. He was not only a statesman, but also a visionary, one who dreamed beyond the limits of his own time. Athens, under his guidance, was not just a city of power, but a beacon of culture, art, and democracy. Pericles saw the Acropolis not as bare stone, but as a stage upon which Athens could declare its greatness. The Persian wars had scarred the city, leaving ruins where temples once stood, silent reminders of struggle. For Pericles, rebuilding was not enough. Athens must rise greater than before, stronger in spirit and form. He imagined a sanctuary so radiant it would speak of wisdom, devotion, and eternal pride in their goddess. Athena deserved more than offerings. She deserved a monument that reflected the soul of her people. In his speeches, he told Athenians that their city was unlike any other, destined to inspire all of Greece. He urged them to look upward, toward the Acropolis, and see not just stone, but the promise of eternity. The Parthenon would not be for one generation alone, but for countless eyes yet to be born. It would be their gift to Athena and their declaration to the world. Athens is the heart of wisdom. Pericles gathered the best minds, architects of vision, and artisans whose hands shaped marble like clay. He called upon Ictinos and Callicrates to design a structure that balanced harmony with divine grandeur. Phidias, the sculptor, became the master of its adornment, trusted with bringing gods to life in stone. Under Pericles' vision, they were not mere builders, but storytellers, carving Athens into the skyline. The project was bold, immense, and costly, yet Pericles saw it as an investment in Athens' destiny. He believed beauty was not luxury, but necessity, a reflection of order and wisdom in civic life. The Parthenon would shine as proof that Athens was not only powerful in war, but noble in spirit. It would declare that their goddess gave them not fear, but wisdom, courage, and enduring strength. Citizens supported the work, seeing in it not vanity, but devotion to Athena and pride in their city. Each stone carried meaning, each column whispered of balance, and each carving told a story of faith. For Pericles, this was more than architecture. It was Athens speaking to the ages in the language of stone. He imagined travelers from distant lands climbing the hill and standing silent before its marble glow. They would know at once that Athens was guided not by force, but by wisdom, grace, and imagination. The vision was clear. The Parthenon would be Athens itself, transformed into marble and lifted to the sky. Through this temple, Pericles sought to unite the people, binding them in shared purpose and pride. No one would walk its steps without feeling both the weight of history and the presence of the divine. This was his dream, that Athens should live forever in memory, through its devotion to Athena. And so, the work began, with hammer and chisel echoing across the Acropolis, guided by his vision. It was not just construction, but the birth of an idea, a promise carved in white stone for eternity. The Parthenon would rise as the crown of the Acropolis, the jewel of Athens, and the gift of Pericles. When the vision of Pericles was spoken, it was the hands of architects and artists that gave it life in stone. Among them were Ictinos and Callicrates, two men whose names would be forever linked to the Parthenon. They were not ordinary builders, but masters who understood harmony, proportion, and the secrets of design. Their task was not to raise walls alone, but to create a temple that could stand as a poem in marble. They studied the hilltop carefully, measuring every slope, every line of the Acropolis, with patient care. The foundation must hold not just weight, but meaning, supporting a structure built to last for eternity. Iktinos brought an eye for precision, a love of geometry, and the knowledge of balance within symmetry. Callicrates brought elegance, vision, and a sense of grace, shaping ideas into forms that touched the sky. Together, they crafted a plan that blended strength with beauty, science with spirit, and logic with faith. They chose the Doric order for its dignity and power, but refined it with subtle touches of perfection. Columns were not simply vertical lines. Each leaned inward slightly, correcting illusions of the human eye. The base was not flat, but curved so gently that it breathed with life, resisting the stillness of rigidity. Every measurement was exact, yet every line carried softness, as though the stone itself was alive. Overseeing all was Phidias, the sculptor, whose genius in art would crown the Parthenon with splendor. Phidias was not only a craftsman, but a storyteller who carved gods, heroes, and mortals in vivid form. His role was to fill the temple with spirit, to make marble speak of divinity, harmony, and Athenian pride.
She truly is
He designed
divine.
the colossal statue of Athena,
The light
a figure of gold and
reveals the
ivory,
path.
radiant at the temple's heart. But beyond that, he guided the adornment of friezes, pediments, and metopes with living tales of myth. He understood that the Parthenon was not only a temple, but a gallery of memory, carved in luminous stone. Under Pericles' leadership, these men did not work alone, but with countless skilled artisans of Athens. Stonemasons shaped marble blocks with patient rhythm, chisels ringing like music across the Acropolis. Carvers etched figures into stone, their hands steady, their eyes intent on breathing life into detail. Each worker, from the humblest hand to the greatest master, carried pride in shaping Athena's home. They were bound not just by duty, but by devotion, as if every strike of the hammer was a prayer. The work demanded patience, precision, and years of labor under the unyielding sun of Attica's sky. But the vision held them, and the thought that they built not for themselves, but for generations to come. Iktinos and Callicrates watched as lines became columns, and columns became walls, alive with meaning. Phidias oversaw as blank stone turned into stories, figures frozen in graceful motion for eternity. Pericles visited often, his eyes bright with pride, seeing his dream take form through their combined skill. This was more than construction. It was a union of minds, hands, and hearts devoted to Athena. The architects gave the temple its body, the sculptor gave it soul, and the people gave it purpose. Each role was essential, each contribution part of a greater whole, a harmony of craft and devotion. And so, stone by stone, story by story, the Parthenon began to rise, guided by vision and human genius. It was not the work of one man, but of many, united under the light of Athena's watchful spirit. The builders may not have known it then, but they were shaping not only a temple, but a legacy eternal. The marble that shaped the Parthenon was not born on the Acropolis, but in the quarries of Mount Pentelicus. This mountain, north of Athens, held stone of rare beauty, white with a faint golden glow in sunlight. The Athenians chose it with care, for only such marble could match the vision of a temple for Athena. The process began with quarrymen, skilled and patient, who worked with iron tools to free the stone. They cut great blocks with method, using chisels, hammers, and wooden wedges driven into carved grooves. Water was poured on the wedges, swelling them, splitting the marble along natural veins with steady force. Each strike of the hammer echoed across the hills, a rhythm of labor tied to the future of Athens. The workers knew their task was more than stone cutting. It was shaping the foundation of something eternal. From the quarries, the marble began a journey, traveling miles across rough land toward the city. Oxen pulled sledges loaded with blocks, their hooves pressing the dirt, their steps slow and unyielding. Roads were not smooth, but the Athenians engineered ways to move stone with rollers and wooden tracks. Every block carried weight not just in mass, but in meaning, destined to become part of a sacred home. At the foot of the Acropolis, ramps and pulleys raised the marble toward the summit of the hill. The sight must have stirred awe, watching massive stones ascend slowly, guided by human hands and will. Once on the plateau, artisans examined each block, marking places where chisels would carve new forms. The stone was measured, cut, and polished, transformed from rough mass into shining, perfect surfaces. Columns rose from drums of marble, each carefully shaped and stacked, locked with hidden joints of precision. No mortar bound them, only the flawless fit of stone upon stone, held by balance and harmony. The stylobate curved gently beneath the columns, a subtle rise that corrected the illusions of the eye. Every line of marble carried intention, every curve a correction, every angle a whisper of perfection. The Athenians treated the marble with reverence, not as material, but as a vessel of divine meaning. For in their belief, beauty was a form of truth, and harmony reflected the order of the cosmos. The Parthenon was no mere shelter for a statue, but a symbol carved from the earth itself. The marble's golden shimmer at sunset bathed the temple in radiance, as though touched by Athena's hand. Travelers approaching Athens saw the Acropolis gleam, a beacon of light, pride, and civilization. The journey of each block told a story of labor, devotion, and the unity of a city at its height. It was not only the brilliance of architects or sculptors that shaped the Parthenon, but the toil of many. From quarry to city, from raw stone to polished column, countless hands gave form to the dream. The workers may not have stood as heroes in history, but their sweat lived within every marble line. Each block placed upon the hill was a fragment of sacrifice, effort, and quiet human perseverance. And when the temple rose, glowing against the Athenian sky, it carried with it their unseen legacy. For the Parthenon was built not only for gods and leaders, but as a monument to the people's strength. Stone by stone, journey by journey, the marble gave voice to a story greater than any single life.
The path.
And so the white marble of Pentelicus became the eternal skin of the Parthenon, shining through centuries. Its glow was not only of light, but of memory, binding the work of humble hands to the divine. The Parthenon was not only a marvel of architecture, but also a stage where myths came alive in stone. Every surface carried a story, every carving a voice, telling the world who the Athenians were and what they valued. The pediments, set high above the entrance, held vast sculptures that filled the triangular spaces with motion. On the east pediment, Athena's birth was displayed, a vision of gods gathered at the moment of her arrival. Zeus sat in majesty, while Athena emerged fully formed, radiant, the goddess of wisdom and warlike strategy. The gods stood around in awe, their figures carved with such grace they seemed to breathe within the marble. On the west pediment, another story unfolded, the contest between Athena and Poseidon for the land of Attica. Poseidon struck the ground with his trident, offering water, while Athena gave the olive tree of peace. The Athenians chose her gift, and through this myth, they affirmed their identity tied to wisdom and prosperity. The metopes, running along the outer frieze, told stories of struggle, courage, and triumph of order over chaos. Here, battles between Greeks and centaurs showed reason prevailing over wildness, harmony over disorder. Elsewhere, gods battled giants, and heroes fought Amazons, each scene a reminder of courage and balance. Yet these were not depictions of cruelty, but of ideals, carved with power and dignity, avoiding raw violence. The frieze that wound inside the temple carried a gentler story, one not of myth, but of civic pride. It showed the Panathenaic procession, the grand festival held every 4 years in honor of Athena. Citizens of Athens were carved in timeless detail, walking, riding, carrying offerings for their goddess. Musicians played flutes and lyres, youths led horses, maidens carried vessels, all moving with steady grace. At the heart of the procession was the sacred robe, woven each year, offered to Athena in devotion. This frieze was unique, for it did not only celebrate gods, but also the people themselves, honored in stone. It told that the divine and the mortal were not distant, but joined in the life of the city and faith. Phidias oversaw these works, guiding artists to carve with balance, detail, and reverence for both myth and truth. The figures were not stiff, but alive. Horses straining, men leaning, drapery flowing with the breeze of Greece. The art spoke not only of religion, but of ideals, harmony, balance, courage, and unity of the polis. Visitors who gazed upon the Parthenon saw more than beauty. They saw Athens telling its eternal story. Each sculpture, each line of stone, was both a tribute to the gods and a mirror of the people's soul. The carvings gave the Parthenon its voice, whispering myths, singing of festivals, proclaiming civic pride. They made the temple more than walls and columns. They turned it into a library of stories without words. For centuries, even as voices faded, the silent tales in marble remained, carrying Athens' memory forward. The east pediment reminded viewers of divine birth, the west of wise choice, the metopes of courage. The frieze reminded them of their unity, their festival, their place in the story of Athena's beloved city. Thus, the Parthenon stood not only as a house of worship, but as a storyteller carved into living stone. Its myths became eternal, its processions unending, its lessons preserved beneath the Athenian sky. And as sunlight shifted across the carvings each day, it was as if the figures stirred, alive once again. At the heart of the Parthenon stood a wonder unlike any other, the statue of Athena Parthenos by Phidias. She rose to nearly 40 feet in height, crafted with a grandeur that filled the temple with divine presence. Her body gleamed with ivory, polished smooth to capture the softness of living flesh in luminous form. Her robes shimmered with gold plates, each fitted with care, a treasure of wealth and reverence combined. Athena stood upright, proud and serene, her face calm, her eyes gazing with wisdom beyond human years. In her right hand, she held Nike, the goddess of victory, a small figure offering triumph to Athens itself. In her left hand rested a shield, grand and circular, adorned with carvings of battles between gods and giants. At her side coiled a serpent, symbol of protection and mystery, linking her to the deep roots of myth. Her helmet rose with triple crests, decorated with sphinxes and griffins, creatures of guardianship and power. The statue was not merely decoration, but an embodiment of Athens' spirit, strength, and devotion to wisdom. Phidias designed her not as a distant goddess, but as a radiant presence uniting divine and mortal worlds. Her gleaming figure was said to reflect the sunlight through the temple, glowing like a beacon of faith. Pilgrims who entered the Parthenon felt her presence overwhelm them,
She truly
filling
is
the hall with
divine.
silent reverence.
The light
The base of the statue
reveals
was
the
adorned
path.
with reliefs, scenes of the birth of Pandora, the first woman in myth. These stories, carved beneath her feet, reminded viewers of creation, challenge, and the gifts of the gods. The shield itself was another masterpiece, lined with images of gods in battle, sculpted with striking detail. Each figure told a tale of struggle, yet within the chaos, there was always balance, harmony, and order. Even the sandals of Athena bore carvings, scenes of battle between Greeks and centaurs, harmony over chaos. Nothing was without meaning, for every part of the statue spoke of myth, of Athens, and of timeless ideals. The craftsmanship was beyond measure, a blending of engineering, art, and sacred imagination into one. It took not only skill, but vision, for Phidias understood Athena as more than a goddess, but a protector. To see her was to see the spirit of Athens itself, clothed in gold, alive with wisdom and unyielding grace. The statue was also practical, for the gold plates could be removed, a treasury in times of desperate need. Yet even in its function, it remained symbolic, reminding Athens of the wealth and power it held in trust. Visitors spoke of her brilliance, how she seemed alive, her calm gaze blessing the city from within her temple. Some claimed that even in silence, Athena spoke, her presence reminding all of the bond between city and goddess. The statue was not only a marvel of artistry, but also a sacred anchor, binding faith to the life of Athens. Every festival, every procession that reached the Parthenon came before her gaze, steady and eternal. Generations would remember her, not just as stone and gold, but as a living symbol of what Athens stood for. Though centuries would pass, her legend remained, told through records, copies, and memories of her light. For even when time would strip away the gleaming gold, the spirit she embodied could not be destroyed. Athena Parthenos was more than a statue. She was a story, a protector, and the immortal heart of the Parthenon. When the Parthenon stood complete, it was not silent stone, but a living part of Athenian life and ritual. Every year, the people of Athens gathered to honor their goddess in the great Panathenaic festival. This celebration was more than ritual. It was a union of faith, music, procession, and civic pride. The festival began with sacrifices at dawn, smoke rising into the air as prayers were spoken for Athena. Citizens, young and old, joined together, each carrying their role in a procession of devotion and meaning. Musicians filled the streets with melody, flutes and lyres echoing through the city as steps kept rhythm. Athletes competed in games, chariots thundered across tracks, and wrestlers displayed strength and control. Poets recited verses, singers lifted hymns, all giving voice to the culture that Athens held most dear. At the heart of it all was the procession toward the Acropolis, winding slowly up the sacred hill. Priests led the way, followed by maidens chosen to carry sacred vessels filled with offerings for Athena. Citizens carried olive branches, symbols of peace, while others bore gifts woven into the fabric of faith. At the center of the ritual was the peplos, a robe woven by women, adorned with scenes of divine story. Each stitch carried reverence, each thread tied with devotion, as the robe was prepared for the goddess. It was brought in the procession, displayed with honor, and offered to clothe the great wooden image of Athena. The Parthenon received the people as the final destination, its steps echoing with the sound of devotion. Inside, the citizens felt the presence of Athena Parthenos, gleaming, serene, guardian of their city's soul. Prayers were spoken, hymns were sung, and offerings laid. binding mortal hands to divine protection. The festival was not only for the gods, but for the city, reminding Athenians of their unity and strength. It was a living bond between the divine stories carved in marble and the lives of the people who believed. For children, the Parthenon was a lesson, showing them the roots of their city and the goddess they served. For elders, it was a memory renewed, a reminder that Athena watched over them as she always had. Merchants, craftsmen, farmers, and leaders all joined, standing side by side beneath the gaze of Athena. The Parthenon was their temple, their pride, the crown of their city, and the heart of their devotion. Every 4 years, the greater Parthenon drew visitors from across Greece to share in the glory of Athens. Competitions were fierce, but they were also a celebration of excellence, honoring both body and mind. Prizes were olive oil and sacred amphorae, gifts tied to Athena's tree, symbols of life and prosperity. The city shone brightest during these days, alive with joy, faith, and the spirit of shared heritage. And when the procession reached its end, and the peplos was placed before Athena, silence fell in awe. The people looked up at her towering figure, radiant in gold and ivory, their protector and eternal guide. The Panathenaic festival was more than a ritual. It was the soul of Athens, woven into life itself.
The light
Through it,
reveals
the Parthenon became not just a temple of stone, but a stage where faith met celebration. Here, myths, music, art, and devotion merged into one, echoing through the columns for generations. And as the sun set upon the marble, glowing gold in evening light, the city knew Athena was near. For the Parthenon was not just her home, but their promise, renewed with every festival, year after year. The Parthenon was not only a temple of faith, but also a treasury holding the wealth of the Athenian Empire. Within its chambers, gold and silver were stored, tribute gathered from the cities under Athenian influence. The empire stretched across the Aegean, and each allied city sent offerings as tokens of loyalty and obligation. These resources, entrusted to Athena, symbolized that the goddess herself safeguarded the prosperity of Athens. It was a clever union of faith and politics, where divine guardianship reinforced earthly authority and power. Visitors entering the Parthenon saw not only sacred devotion, but also the wealth of an empire on display. The gleam of treasure whispered of Athens' reach, reminding all who entered of the city's dominance and pride. Gold from distant islands, silver from conquered lands, and precious offerings shimmered in the sacred space. The temple was more than stone and statue. It was a vault of confidence, the beating heart of imperial Athens. To the citizens, it meant their goddess blessed their fortune, tying faith and wealth into one sacred bond. Festivals and rituals reaffirmed this connection, ensuring the people saw prosperity as Athena's divine gift. The presence of treasure in the Parthenon also shaped how rivals viewed Athens, a city of dazzling power. Envoys from abroad could not ignore the brilliance within, symbols of empire cloaked in piety and devotion. The Athenians, through the Parthenon, projected strength that was both spiritual and material, divine and earthly. Every offering placed within its walls became part of a narrative of protection, wealth, and enduring might. For the people of Athens, depositing riches in the Parthenon was a pledge of trust in their guardian goddess. The temple was not guarded by soldiers, but by the belief that Athena herself watched over its treasures. This faith gave the people a sense of security, believing no harm could come while the goddess protected them. Merchants saw their city flourish, trade routes busy, coins shining, all under the blessing of Athena's gaze. artists found inspiration in the abundance, carving and painting with the confidence of a city at its peak. Philosophers drew lessons from it, seeing the union of wisdom and wealth as proof of divine harmony. Athens stood tall not only as a city of thinkers and builders, but as a hub of immense prosperity. The Parthenon's role as treasury tied it inseparably to the daily lives of its citizens, rich and poor alike. Even common folk felt pride, knowing the riches of empire lay in their goddess's house, a gift to their city. Children, told of the treasures, grew up believing their city was protected by more than walls and armies. The Parthenon shone as a beacon of fortune, its columns guarding wealth as steadfastly as they guarded faith. Travelers spoke of it with awe, tales spreading of a temple that was both shrine and vault of empire. And in every tale, the goddess Athena stood at the center, her blessing making Athens strong and secure. Thus, the Parthenon became a double symbol of devotion to the divine and of triumph in the mortal world. Its marble walls did not merely echo prayers, they also rang with the quiet hum of power and authority. Faith, wealth, and pride interwove in harmony, each strengthening the other beneath Athena's eternal gaze. In this union, Athens found its glory, a city rising high on both the spirit and the substance of its people. The Parthenon was not only the soul of Athens, but also the vault of its strength, radiant upon the hill. As the Parthenon stood high above Athens, its beauty spoke not only to the citizens, but to all who came near. Travelers from distant lands approached the Acropolis and marveled at its gleaming marble under the sun. The temple seemed to glow, a crown of white stone upon the hill, reflecting both power and divine grace. Architects and artists saw in it a lesson, a harmony of form and proportion rarely matched in the world. The columns rose tall, Doric in strength yet refined, each crafted with precision beyond the reach of time. They leaned ever so slightly inward, a secret adjustment ensuring the eye saw balance and perfection. Even the steps were shaped with care, curved subtly so water would not pool, yet appearing perfectly straight. The builders of the Parthenon understood the human eye, and they built for vision, not for rigid lines. Mathematics, art, and devotion met in marble, forming a temple that seemed almost alive in its design. The friezes and metopes told stories, carved in stone where gods and mortals moved in eternal scenes. Each figure was more than decoration. It was a memory, a lesson, a piece of Athens' proud identity. Visitors gazed at these sculptures and felt the myths of Greece breathe through the stone with quiet
reveals the path.
The east pediment spoke of Athena's birth, springing forth from Zeus with radiance and divine authority. The west pediment showed the contest for Athens, when Athena offered the olive and claimed the city. On the walls, battles of centaurs and men, gods and giants, spoke of the eternal struggle for harmony. Every carving carried meaning, every detail tied the temple to myth, history, and the heart of the people. Inside, light played across the statue of Athena, gold and ivory gleaming like a vision of living divinity. She stood serene yet commanding, her spear reaching high, her shield a mirror of strength and wisdom. At her feet coiled a serpent, guardian of the sacred, a reminder of mystery and the depths of belief. The statue was more than art. It was presence, a constant reminder that Athena watched over her city. Pilgrims entered and felt awe, as if the boundary between human and divine thinned beneath the marble roof. The Parthenon spoke in silence, its language carved in proportion, myth, and the grandeur of its form. To Athenians, it was proof that their city was chosen, guided, and blessed by their immortal protector. To outsiders, it was a declaration, a monument that whispered of a people unmatched in vision and craft. Philosophers walking beneath its shadow saw in it the embodiment of balance, symmetry, and eternal truth. They saw more than stone, they saw reason and beauty woven into architecture. Wisdom turned into form. The Parthenon was not meant to be hidden. It was meant to shine, to be seen from land and sea alike. Ships approaching Athens caught sight of it rising above the city, a promise of power and protection. Merchants saw safety in its gleam, travelers saw wonder, and enemies saw a warning carved in marble. Yet for the citizens of Athens, it was home, their offering to Athena, their pride, their sacred heart. Every detail told them they were part of something greater, bound to their goddess and to their city. And as the sun set, painting the marble with gold and crimson, the Parthenon seemed to breathe with life. It was not only stone but spirit, not only a temple but a voice, speaking across time to all who beheld it. In its walls lived the vision of Athens, radiant and enduring, a beacon of beauty for generations to come. The Parthenon still stands, though centuries have passed, its marble scarred, yet its spirit unbroken and bright. Empires rose and fell, but the temple remained, a witness to history, silent yet filled with living memory. Once a house for Athena, it later wore many roles: church, mosque, ruin, and symbol for generations. Each stone carries the touch of time, yet beneath the wear, the design still breathes harmony and grace. Travelers from across the world climb the Acropolis today, drawn by the same glow that inspired the ancients. They see columns weathered by centuries, yet standing proud, as if refusing to bow to passing years. The Parthenon teaches that beauty endures, not in perfection, but in resilience and quiet persistence. It reminds us that faith and art, once joined, can outlast the kingdoms that built them long ago. The goddess no longer watches in statue form, but her presence lingers in the air, silent yet undeniable. Athena's wisdom lives not only in myth, but in the lessons her temple continues to share with the world. Philosophers once walked here, poets sang here, and citizens found pride in this crown of their city. Now scholars study, artists sketch, and seekers of meaning stand in awe, feeling the weight of centuries. The Parthenon is more than ruins. It is a bridge across time, a dialogue between past and present. It speaks to us of devotion, of unity, of the power of human hands guided by vision and belief. Its columns, though broken, still whisper of balance, proportion, and the eternal search for harmony. Its steps, though worn, still carry the echoes of festivals, prayers, and voices lifted to the heavens. The Parthenon is not only for Athens, but for all who seek beauty, wisdom, and the courage to create. It belongs to the world now, a gift from the ancients, a reminder that greatness is built with vision. Each visitor who looks upon it becomes part of its story, carrying its meaning into new lands and times. The sun still paints its marble gold at dusk, and the night sky crowns it with stars as once it did. The city of Athens breathes around it, modern and ancient, a living frame for this eternal monument. The Parthenon is both memory and presence, both ruin and wonder, both silence and endless voice. It shows that even when gods fade into myth, the works of devotion can still light the path of man. For in stone, in story, in spirit, the Parthenon holds the soul of Athena, eternal guardian of wisdom. She lives not only in temples, but in every mind that seeks truth, balance, and courage. In the world, the Parthenon endures as a reminder that what we build in beauty can outlast the ages of time. It asks us to wonder, to create, to believe, that harmony and greatness are still within human reach. As we leave this story, the Parthenon
She
remains,
truly is
steadfast
divine.
upon its hill, glowing in the light of history.
Reveals the past.
Its voice calls softly, telling us to honor the past while building wisely for the days yet to come. The Parthenon of Athena is not only a temple, but a mirror, reflecting what humanity was and can be. And as long as its marble stands against the sky, its message will endure, timeless, unbroken, and true.